Have you ever watched a rich kid torch a decade of your work with one line in a spreadsheet and still think he's untouchable? He sliced $980,000 from my project at 11:47 p.m. with a single comment. Then he took my numbers to sell his secret deal. By sunrise, I'd found the one loophole and the one email that could gut his entire empire. He thought he cut my budget. He didn't realize I was about to cut his future. My name is Scarlett Castillo. I am almost 40 years old, and I am the Director of Operations Finance at Northbridge Apex Group, or at least, I was, from my office on the 22nd floor. Ridgehaven is a map of cold, distant lights. It is a city that likes to pretend it is the new Seattle, full of high-altitude ambition and venture-backed dreams. But tonight, it just feels like a ghost town reflected in my monitor. The air in the office is recycled and stale, carrying the faint, sad smell of carpet cleaner and coffee that died hours ago. I am the only one here. I am almost always the only one here this late. For 3 years, I have been building a machine, not a physical one, but a financial one, a complex, intricate model of cost optimization that I call the Ops Efficiency Pilot. It identifies waste before it happens. It reroutes supply chain spending in real time. It is clean. It is elegant. And it has already saved Northbridge Apex Group over $5 million. Tonight, I am running the final forecast models for the next fiscal year. This is the part I love, the quiet, the numbers aligning perfectly, clicking into place like the tumblers of a high-security lock. This program is my flagship, the proof that I belong in a room full of men who think vision is an excuse to ignore math. The numbers stabilize. The projection is solid. I lean back, stretching the stiffness from my neck, and I feel that brief, rare flicker of professional satisfaction. A blue pop-up banner slides into the corner of my screen. An email. It is 11:47 p.m. My stomach tightens instantly. No good email arrives at 11:47 p.m. The sender is Evan Kincaid. Of course it is. Evan is the CEO's son, a man who fell upward from a private MBA program directly into a VP of Strategic Ventures title that Northbridge invented for him. He is all teeth, expensive hair gel, and the unshakable confidence of someone who has never faced a consequence. The subject line is an offense in itself. Quick budget tweak, need your sign-off tonight. My mouse hovers. I know this game. Quick means disastrous. Tweak means demolition. Need your sign-off means I have already done this and I'm just covering my tracks. I open the email. It contains no greeting. Just a link to the master budget file on the shared drive, and one sentence. Per our strategic review, need this finalized before midnight for the board deck. Our strategic review. I was not in a strategic review. I click the link. The spreadsheet loads, slow and heavy with macros. I navigate to the Ops Pilot tab, my tab, and there it is. A single, highlighted cell, a yellow note attached, written by E. Kincaid. Reallocate $980,000 from Ops Efficiency Pilot to Strategic Ventures Incubator Confidential. I read the number again. $980,000. Then I see the other change, the owner column for the entire pilot program, the one that has had my name on it for 3 years, has been changed. It no longer says S. Castillo. It says, Exec Sponsor E. Kincaid. The air leaves my lungs in a cold rush. $980,000. It is not a tweak. It is an execution. It is the entire budget for Phase 2. It is the vendor contracts, the software licenses, the 2 junior analysts I hired in August. It is everything, gutted, deleted like a typo, and for what? The Strategic Ventures Incubator, a corporate black hole, a buzzword-laden slush fund that Evan uses to fly to conferences and buy experimental software that never gets implemented. It is a C-suite vanity project, and he just fed my life's work into its furnace to keep it warm. Before I can even process the rage, a new notification, the bloop of a Slack message. The sound is suddenly violent in the silence. It is Evan. Of course, they always use Slack for the messages they are too cowardly to put in an email. The message appears in the corner of my screen. Need you to be a team player on this. This is above your pay grade. Scarlet. And then, the final insult. The digital equivalent of a spit in the face. The winking, smirking yellow emoji. My blood does not boil. It freezes. It turns to ice in my veins. Above my pay grade, I am the one who built the models that define the pay grades. I am the one who found the $5 million he lives on. And that is when it hits me, the realization, it is so clear, so sudden, that I feel stupid for not seeing it before. His presentation, 2 weeks ago, at the quarterly strategy review, he presented a bold new vision for his incubator. He had slides full of data, projections, ROI calculations. He showed exactly how his ventures would generate millions in new savings. He used my numbers. He took my entire 3-year case study, copied the data, repackaged my analysis, and presented it to his father and the board as his own projected success. He was praised for his financial acumen and forward-thinking strategy, and now, to fund the very incubator he justified with my work, he is killing the program that generated the data in the first place. He is erasing the source. He is erasing me. My hand is shaking, not with fear. With a clarity so pure it is almost painful. I minimize the spreadsheet. I minimize Slack. I open a file path on my personal drive, one that is nested 6 folders deep and encrypted. The folder is titled, Kincaid Overrides. It is not empty. I go back to the budget file. I save a new version. I save it to my hidden folder. I open the document properties. I screenshot the metadata. Last modified by E. Kincaid. Time 11:41 p.m. I screenshot the yellow note. I screenshot the changelog showing he deleted my name from the owner column. I save the original file, the one from an hour ago, right next to his butchered version. I document everything. The time, the change, the lies. I sit back in my chair. The monitor hums. 2 roads. I see them clearly. Road 1, I click. Accept changes. I am a team player. I survive. I go home. Drink a glass of whiskey that costs too much, and wake up tomorrow to manage the quiet, humiliating dismantling of my own work. I keep my job. I keep my salary. I let the rage curdle into an ulcer. This is the road I have always taken. Road 2. Well, Road 2 is new. This was not a budget cut. This was not corporate restructuring. This was grand larceny. Committed in plain sight. Signed with a smirking emoji. He did not just take the money. He took my name. My cursor moves across the screen. It hovers over the Accept Changes button in the workflow prompt. I can almost hear the click, the sound of surrender. I move the mouse away. I move it down, to the small icon in the system tray, the icon of a lock, my VPN connection, my link to the Northbridge Apex servers. I right-click. I select Disconnect. The icon spins, then turns red. I am off the network. I am no longer in their system. I am just a woman in a dark office, 22 floors above the sleeping city. I stand up, my knees cracking in the silence. I look at my reflection in the dark window, the ghost in the machine. You just made this federal, Evan. I whisper the words to the glass, and for the first time in a very long time, I am not thinking about the budget. I am thinking about the law. I did not drive home. I walked. The 2 miles from the Northbridge Tower to my apartment in Ridgehaven felt like a decompression chamber. The cold air was sharp, real, now, sitting on my couch in the dark, the laptop glowing on the coffee table. The last 10 years are playing back in my head. 10 years. It is a long time to be the one person in the room who is good at math. I started at Northbridge Apex as a senior financial analyst. I was hungry, sharp, and naive. I believed that corporations, at their core, respected one thing: accurate numbers. I walked into my first budget review meeting, a sea of gray suits and blue shirts, and I found the error. It was a $3 million forecasting error, buried in a contingency assumption. I raised my hand. These numbers don't seem logical, I said. The silence that followed was heavy. 10 men turned to look at me. My boss at the time, a man named Henderson, leaned over and whispered, "We don't find problems in this meeting. Castillo, we align." That was my introduction to the culture. I learned quickly. My job was not to be right. My job was to be agreeable. Every time I brought up a genuine risk, the response was the same. When I warned that our vendor contracts were too concentrated, putting us at serious risk if one of them failed, I was told I was not seeing the big picture. When I mentioned that the way we were booking revenue in a new software division might attract attention from SOX auditors, I was publicly, asked by the CFO to tone it down. He said it with a smile, as if I were a hysterical child. Let's not get lost in the weeds. Scarlett, and my favorite, when I questioned the aggressive covenants on our first line of credit with Sentinel Bay Capital, I was told I was being an obstructionist, not a partner. I was the Cassandra of the finance department, cursed with seeing the truth and being told to shut up about it. And then, Evan Kincaid arrived. He did not start as an analyst. He did not work his way up from the spreadsheets, balancing accounts in the small hours of the morning. He simply appeared. He fell from his private MBA program, won his father's donations likely secured, and landed directly in a director-level position. 18 months, that is all it took for him to become vice president of strategic ventures. 18 months. I had been there for 6 years and had just clawed my way to director myself, and I had the scar tissue to prove it. I remember the all-hands town hall. His father, Martin Kincaid, our CEO, stood on stage, arms slung around his son. Evan is going to lead our charge into the next decade. Martin beamed, his voice echoing with manufactured pride. He just has vision. Vision. In the corporate world, vision is the word you use for people who cannot read a balance sheet. Evan had vision. I had spreadsheets. The vision started small. He would borrow my junior analysts for brainstorming sessions. Then, my ideas started appearing in his presentations, just slightly warped. I would spend a quarter building a model for inventory efficiency, a way to save us $2 million in carrying costs. The next week, I would see my core concept on a slide in the executive meeting. The data was mine. The methodology was mine. But the logo in the corner was not Northbridge Apex. It was a sleek, obnoxious design, Kincaid Ventures. The first time, I was confused. The second time, I was angry. The third time, I went to Human Resources. I scheduled a meeting with Gina Wallace, the SVP of HR. Gina is a woman who smiles constantly, a tense, bright smile that never, ever reaches her eyes. She wears expensive, sharp-shouldered blazers and talks about culture as if it were a product we ship. "Scarlett," she said, before I could even sit down in the uncomfortable minimalist chair in her glass-walled office. "So glad you wanted to chat. I hear you're doing incredible work supporting Evan's new initiatives." The framing was a trap, and I knew it. "Gina, that is actually why I'm here. The initiatives Evan is presenting, they are my work. The data, the models, the savings. He is taking credit for my projects." Gina's smile tightened by one painful millimeter. She steepled her fingers, a perfect, polished manicure. "We don't want to make this about ego, do we? Scarlett?" she asked, her voice dropping into that smooth, concerned HR tone that always precedes a dismissal. "We are all one team, and credit, well, credit is a complicated thing. Evan is the executive sponsor. You are the operational support. That is how it works at this level." I tried to argue. I told her it was not about credit. It was about accuracy. I showed her the file properties, the email chains. She just nodded, her eyes glazed over, already thinking about her next meeting. "My advice to you," she said, standing up to signal the meeting was over, "is to focus on the work, not the credit. It looks much better for your career. We do not want to be seen as difficult." Difficult. I walked out of her office. My face was hot. My hands were cold. I was not just angry. I was changed. I went back to my desk. I bought a 2 terabyte external hard drive from an online retailer that night, had it delivered to my apartment. The next day, I began my archive. I did not just save my work, I saved their work. Every version of every file, the original file, and the one Evan's team polished by adding his name. I saved every Slack message. Evan loved Slack. He loved to write. Let's keep this off email. I screenshotted every single one. I saved the town hall video where Martin praised Evan's vision. I saved the budget drafts. I saved the HR policies on ego and teamwork. I dragged it all onto the external drive. I named the drive Reality Archive. It was my insurance. It was my truth. That was 4 years ago. The archive is almost full. And as I sit here, the 11:47 p.m. email searing itself into my brain. I realize what I have been collecting. This is not just about Evan stealing my work. It is not just about the $980,000. That is what Gina Wallace will never understand. This is not about credit. It is about truth. The numbers are being distorted. I know the models. I know the data. The vision Evan is selling to the board, the one he is selling to our bankers at Sentinel Bay, is based on a lie. He is using my real savings from my real pilot program, but he is booking them as future earnings for his fake incubator. He is not just stealing from me, he is committing fraud. He is promising the banks and investors a return based on a foundation that he is actively, proudly demolishing, and he just put his signature on it. He just sent me an email, and a Slack message, and a smirking emoji, creating a permanent, time-stamped record of the theft. I look at the external drive, plugged into my laptop on the coffee table. The little white access light is blinking. My archive, my reality. If I stay silent now, if I let him cut this budget and erase my work, I am no longer just a victim. I am an accomplice. I am not just losing $980,000 of my program's funding. I am actively helping Evan Kincaid and his father perpetuate a multi-million-dollar lie to their investors. I cannot sleep. Sleep is a luxury for people who are not at war. Instead, I am at my dining room table, which has become a command center. My personal laptop, my encrypted external drive, and a fresh pot of coffee. The reality archive is open. The $980,000 cut was the symptom. I am now hunting for the disease. The disease's name is the Strategic Ventures Incubator, a black box. But Evan made a mistake. He presented his vision for it 2 weeks ago. I have the deck. I open the file Strategic Ventures Q3 Vision. It is 47 slides of corporate nonsense, full of stock photos of rock climbers and words like synergy and disruption. I skip past the vision and go straight to the appendix. The appendix is where you hide the truth. There, on the very last slide, in 8-point font, is a list of key strategic partners. One name stands out. One I have never seen: Harborline Nexus Partners. It sounds expensive. It sounds official. It sounds like something Evan would invent. I open my last monthly vendor report, an export I run myself for cost analysis. I search the entire Northbridge vendor database. Harborline, 0 results. Nexus, 0 results. A company that does not exist in our system is receiving nearly $1 million of my budget. This is not a budget reallocation. This is a payment. I go to my email archive, my saved, offline mirror of my corporate inbox. I search Harborline. Nothing. But my fingers are cold. Precise. I search for Kincaid. It is a tidal wave of results. But I'm looking for one specific type of error. The human error. I find it. 6 months ago. A forwarded email chain, accidentally sent to a junior legal analyst who was on my team for a project. The subject, FW Project Apex MA, Preliminary Diligence. The legal analyst had forwarded it to me, asking if this MA project would impact my ops pilot budget. I had not understood at the time. I look at the original to line, buried at the bottom: Evan Kincaid, Reed Morrison, our interim CFO, and 2 external addresses. One is Contact Harborline and Nexus, com. The other is Evank, Private Kincaid Trust, com. My blood runs cold. He is using his personal family trust email address on the same line as this ghost vendor. The sheer, blinding arrogance of it, he is not even trying to hide it. Now I know the name. I can follow the money. I go to my exported general ledger files. I filter by Cost Center Strategic Ventures Incubator. I search for payments. I find them. Not one payment. 3, $600,000, $500,000, $700,000, a total of $1.8 million, paid out over the last 4 months to Harborline Nexus Partners. The expense classification, deal prep services. This is a classic slush fund category. It is intangible, requires no specific deliverables, and sounds critically important. The approval on all 3 payments. Evan Kincaid, and the countersignature Reed Morrison, the CFO. The procurement flag. No bid contract, sole source provider. They did not even bother to fake a bidding process. I remember that name. Reed Morrison. I open my Slack archive. I search the direct messages between Evan and Reed. I find a different thread, one I was in. I had asked Reed about the deal prep services line item during a forecast review. Reed, can you send me the SOW for the Harborline retainer so I can book the expense correctly? Reed never responded in the channel, but 5 minutes later, a new direct message from Evan Kincaid popped up, the one I screenshotted instantly. This stays between exec team. Ops doesn't need this noise. Noise. $1.8 million of noise. My $980,000 was just the next installment. This is where Evan's world, his world of vision and strategy, collides with mine. The world of facts, the world of contracts. I open the single most important file in my archive. The one document I know better than any other. The one they told me to tone down my concerns about. The Sentinel Bay Capital Credit Agreement. The $150 million revolving line of credit that keeps the lights on at Northbridge. I know the covenants by heart. I wrote the memo analyzing them. I scroll to section 6.2. Covenants and representations. Subsection E. Transactions with affiliates. The language is ironclad. Any transaction, engagement, or payment to a related party, which is defined as any entity owned or controlled by an executive officer, director, or their immediate family in excess of $100,000, must be disclosed to and formally approved by the board's audit committee prior to execution. $1.8 million, a Kincaid Family Trust. I pull up the public proxy statements. The board minutes I saved from the investor portal. I search them. No mention of Harborline. No disclosure of a new advisory firm. No approval from the audit committee. Evan and Reed did not just bypass company policy. They are an active, material breach of our primary bank covenant, and the sickness of it, the absolute depravity of the scheme, comes into focus. I open Evan's vision deck again. I look at the slide he showed the board, the one titled Projected ROI Strategic Ventures. It shows a beautiful, upward curve, a projected 22% return on investment. They are not his numbers. They are my numbers. He copied and pasted the entire ROI calculation from my ops efficiency pilot. The $5 million I already saved. He is presenting my historical, proven savings as his future projected earnings. He is using the success of the program he is currently killing to justify the fraud he is committing. I lean back, and the flowchart of the crime builds itself in my mind. Evan wants to push a secret MA deal. He creates a shell company, Harborline, owned by his family trust, to advise on this deal. He funnels $1.8 million from Northbridge to Harborline, signing off on it with his CFO puppet. To fund this, he cannibalizes my $980,000 budget, killing my program to cover his tracks. Then, he uses my program's data to lie to the board and our bankers about how brilliant his incubator is. When his MA deal closes, Harborline gets a massive success fee. The money leaves Northbridge, makes a loop through his private trust, and comes back to him. It is a perfect, closed loop of theft. I think I have seen it all. I think the crime is complete. Then I remember one more file. A file sent to me by a friend in corporate strategy, a man who still believes in the work. He sent it to my personal email weeks ago. "You have to see this," he wrote. "He's completely off the rails." I had saved it. I never opened it. I find it now. Project Apex MA, Internal Champions Deck. It is not a Northbridge deck. The branding is Kincaid Ventures. It is a private pitch, one he is showing to his targets, to his equity partners. I open it. I scroll past the doctored hockey stick graphs. I stop on a slide. Internal buy-in leadership. It is a list of the Northbridge executives who are his champions for this MA deal. His father, Martin Kincaid, CEO, Reed Morrison, CFO, and a third name, a third verification of support, guaranteed internal sponsor buy-in from operations finance leadership. My title, and right below my title, my name, Scarlett Castillo. He put my name on it. He is using me. He is using my reputation as a no-nonsense, by-the-books analyst to legitimize his fraud to the world. The coffee in my cup is cold. I stare at my name on his fraudulent slide. You didn't just steal my budget, I whisper to the glowing screen. You used my name as collateral. I am a person of process. You do not survive 10 years in corporate finance without a deep, unshakable respect for process. And the process for identifying a catastrophic legal and financial risk is clear. You escalate it. I did not go to HR. I did not go to Evan. I went to the person who signs the checks and is legally responsible for their accuracy. The Chief Financial Officer. I scheduled 30 minutes with Reed Morrison. I titled the meeting, Review Sentinel Covenant Compliance Q4 Venture Budget. Reed's office is all brushed steel and dark wood. He believes in the aesthetics of power. He was already standing when I walked in, which was his new power move, learned at some executive retreat. He smiled, a thin, papery smile. Scarlett, what's the fire? There is no fire. Reed, I said, sitting down. He remained standing. I'm here to prevent one. I was reviewing the Q4 budget alignment, specifically the transfer to the Strategic Ventures Incubator. Evan's project, great stuff. Vision, he said, nodding, his eyes already flicking to the tablet on his desk. That's just it, I said, my voice perfectly level. The $1.8 million in payments to Harborline Nexus partners. They're classified as deal prep services, but they were executed without an RFP, and they were sole source approved by Evan. Reed's eyes stopped moving. They locked on me. And I've identified that Harborline appears to be a related party entity, linked to the Kincaid Family Trust. I also identified that the ROI projections used to justify the incubator's funding were taken directly from my operations efficiency pilot, which is now being defunded. I let that hang in the air. I had laid out the crime, the motive, and the evidence. Under Section 6.2 of our credit agreement with Sentinel, I continued, this constitutes an undisclosed related party transaction. It's a covenant breach. Reed, a material one. I wanted to bring it to you before it became a formal audit problem. Reed was silent for a full 10 seconds. He did not look angry. He looked disappointed. He sighed, a long, weary exhalation, as if I were a child who had just broken his favorite vase. He walked around his desk and leaned against it, crossing his arms. He was trying to look casual, like a mentor. Scarlett, 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 he said, shaking his head. He chuckled, a dry, empty sound. You're technically right. I'll give you that. You've always been technically right. That's your brand. He pushed himself off the desk. But you are strategically off, way off. You're looking at the trees. We're building a forest. Do you know what value creation is? It's not about ticking boxes in a credit agreement. It's about moving forward. Fast. This Harborline deal is part of a much bigger MA play, the one Evan is architecting. It's going to add 9 figures to our valuation. That's not... So no. He cut me off, holding up a hand. We are not going to torpedo massive value creation because of semantics. He said the word semantics as if it were something vile. Your job is to make the numbers work, not to question the strategy. We need you to be on the team. I need you to get on the team. Are we clear? He was not asking a question. He was giving a command. I nodded, my face a perfect mask of professional understanding. Clear. Reed, thank you for the context. I walked out. The next morning, I had an email from Gina Wallace in my inbox. Subject, quick check-in. I knew immediately. Reed had made the call. I walked into Gina's glass-walled office at 10 a.m. She was there, smiling her bright, venomous smile, and sitting in the other chair, looking impatiently at his Apple Watch, was Evan Kincaid. My new manager. It was official on the org chart as of 8 a.m. Scarlett, thank you for coming in, Gina started, her voice full of synthetic warmth. We wanted to carve out some time to chat about your new role supporting Evan and the Strategic Ventures team. We're all so excited about this alignment. Evan said nothing. He was texting. There are, Gina continued, some concerns, just about making sure this transition is smooth. We've had some feedback from leadership. She gestured vaguely, as if leadership were a god in the clouds, not the CFO, or the man texting next to her, that your tone in recent discussions has been a bit resistant, a bit negative. I was flagging a covenant breach, I said, my voice quiet. You were flagging problems. Scarlett, Gina said, her smile not wavering. Evan and his team are moving at the speed of growth. They're Northbridge 2.0. We need people who are flexible, who can support that growth, who can build trust. Evan finally looked up. I just need people who do the work and don't create noise. Gina nodded, as if he had just said something profound. Exactly. Which is why we've put together a little support plan, just to get us all on the same page. She slid a document across the table, 2 pages, stapled, Performance Improvement Plan. My breath caught, but I did not let it show. This was the gun. This was the corporate executioner's tool. This isn't a punishment. Scarlett, Gina said, her voice softening into a lie. It's a coaching tool. I read the objectives. They were masterpieces of vague, weaponized HR language. Goal 1. Build trust with executive sponsors. Goal 2. Demonstrate strategic alignment in all communications. Goal 3. Avoid negative framing or obstructionist language in stakeholder updates. It was a contract demanding my silence, a contract demanding my complicity. Gina leaned forward. Her perfume, a sharp, chemical floral, washing over me. Look, she said, dropping the pretense slightly. You're a legacy employee. You've been here a long time, but the company is changing. If this new, fast-paced Northbridge 2.0 isn't the right fit for you anymore, well, I'd be happy to have a separate conversation. We could support your transition, help you find new opportunities, outside. It was the severance threat, the take the money and go speech. They wanted me gone, but they could not just fire me. I knew too much. They had to manage me out. They had to build a paper trail proving I was the problem. I looked at Evan. I looked at Gina. I picked up the pen from her desk. I understand completely, I said, my voice smooth as glass. I appreciate the feedback. I'm ready to align. I signed my name on the line. I signed the document that declared me a problem employee. Evan almost looked disappointed. He wanted a fight. Gina, however, beamed. She had her signed confession. I walked back to my desk. An email popped up on my screen. It was the weekly internal newsletter. The headline, The Architect of Our Future. Below it was a picture of Evan Kincaid, standing on a stage during his vision presentation, and behind him, on the giant screen, was my slide, my ROI chart, my $5 million in savings. I sat there, looking at his face, and I felt nothing, just cold. That night, at home, I did not pour a whiskey. I did not cry. I opened my laptop. I went to my reality archive. I created a new folder. I named it Sentinel Covenants Breach Risk. Inside, I created a new memo. I started listing the violations. Violation 1, Section 6.2e. Undisclosed related party transaction. Evidence file path to Kincaid Trust, email chain. File path to Harborline invoices. File path to board minutes absent of approval. Violation 2. Section 8.1. A. Material misrepresentation of financials. Evidence file path to Evan's vision deck. File path to my original Ops pilot deck. Side-by-side comparison of ROI data. The retaliation was not over. A week later, while I was dutifully attending my first PIP check-in with Evan, he was 15 minutes late. Another email landed. My remaining budget, the small amount left over for my analysts' salaries, was cut. My 2 junior analysts were reassigned. My program was officially dead. My role was formally changed. Senior support, strategic ventures. I was, on paper, Evan Kincaid's administrative assistant. That night, I went home. I took the paper copy of the performance improvement plan from my bag. I took the printout of Gina's coaching notes. I took the printout of Evan's newsletter photo. Him smiling in front of my work. I did not rip them up. I walked to my scanner. I fed the first page of the PEP into the machine. The whirring sound was quiet, precise. I scanned every page. I scanned Gina's passive-aggressive email. I scanned the newsletter. I saved the digital files. I opened the Sentinel Covenants Breach Risk folder. I dragged the new scans in. I added the Slack logs. I added the email from Reed. I added the new org chart showing my demotion. I selected every file in the folder. Right-click, compress. A new file appeared on my desktop. I renamed it. Harborline Case, Pre-Lit, Zip. I looked at the paper copy of the PIP still sitting on my desk. A document designed to be my corporate death certificate. I picked it up. I walked to the old, sturdy metal file cabinet in the corner of my study, the one where I keep my old tax records and my mortgage documents. I opened the drawer. I placed the PIP on top of a stack of files. I closed the drawer. The sound of it shutting was solid, final. A small, cold smile touched my lips. If they want documentation, I said to the empty room, I'll give them documentation. Being on a performance improvement plan is a strange kind of freedom. It is corporate purgatory. Everyone is too polite to speak to you, afraid the stench of failure might be contagious. They avoid your eyes in the hallway. My calendar, once booked back-to-back from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., is now a blank, white desert. I am a ghost, and a ghost has time to read. I sit at my desk. My title now, Senior Support, and I do the one thing they cannot stop me from doing. I read the company's internal communications, an email newsletter. Northbridge Forward lands in my inbox. It is full of bright, empty PR, and on the front page, a celebration. Northbridge Apex in final stage negotiations for new $120 million revolving credit facility with Sentinel Bay Capital. I read the line 3 times. The closing is expected within 30 days. A new facility, $120 million. They are not just extending the old line of credit, they are replacing it. And that means a new contract, new representations, new warranties. My mind flashes back to the existing credit agreement, the one I know by heart, the one they are currently breaching. This new deal changes everything. It is not just a breach of an old contract. It is an active, ongoing lie in a new negotiation. Any undisclosed related party deal, any material misrepresentation of the company's financial health would not just be a breach, it would be fraud. It would be grounds for Sentinel Bay to not just freeze the new facility, but to call in the old one. It would be an immediate, catastrophic default. They are building a $120 million house of cards on top of the Harborline lie. I remember the documents. 6 months ago, I was the one pulling the data for this. I was on Reed's team to package the financial story for Sentinel. I go back to my archive. I find the data room folder I saved. I open the pitch deck we sent the bank. Northbridge Apex, a new era of efficiency,